Week 9. This is when you write your conclusion. You have finished your experiment, or you should have finished your experiment at this point. You've typed up your data, you know what you got, and it's time to write your conclusion. Now, your conclusion always has 4 main parts. The first part of that is restating the question and whether or not your hypothesis was correct. It doesn't have to be a direct copying of the purpose and pasting that into your conclusion. Please have the freedom to restate it, as well as my hypothesis that goldfish would be the most productive at 20 degrees Celsius was correct. Period. That would be a restating as well as telling about the hypothesis. Now, the second part of the conclusion is summary data. Now, this is the data that either supports or disproved your hypothesis. Not all of your data, and you can't just say, see above chart. This is where you're putting in averages or numerical representations of your general data that you have gotten. That's why it's a summary. So with my goldfish, and hypothetically, I've been finding their temperatures and watching their lifespan, I would say that my hypothesis was correct because my fish who were kept at 20 degrees Celsius have continued to live past the 3-week mark, whereas my fish who were in the 35 degrees Celsius water died after 48 hours, and my fish that was kept in the fridge at 5 degrees Celsius died after 7 days. That would be my summarized data. The third part, and this is going to be the bulk of your conclusion, is explaining why you got what you got. Why did that happen? Now, this may mean you have to do a little more research. That's wonderful. And if you do more research, you do need to reference that new research. You need to cite that new research. This isn't to discourage you. But if you tell me that the fish at 20 degrees Celsius lived the longest because it had the happiest life, that's not a good explanation. You need to tell me why. Is it because the blood flow in the goldfish functioned at its most? This is where you dig up some data. You have to have a reason of why. Explain to the reader why this is what happened. And if you fully don't know and there's no way to find out why, this is where you're going to make your most educated guess. And then at this point, ties into our next point, and ties into our next step of our conclusion, a further experiment to help clarify why indeed that was the case. So step 4 of your conclusion, so recap. Step 1, restate purpose, statement, and whether or not your hypothesis was correct. Step 2 is summarize data to explain that. Step 3, explain why you got what you got. Why are the results were what they were. Step 4 is where you are going to tell me errors that may have occurred during your scientific process and ways to improve it. What would be your next step? If you had to do this experiment again, what would you do different? Or how could you use this as a catalyst for a new experiment? So those are the 4 steps of a conclusion that you're going to type up. You're going to spell check that, and you're going to turn it in this week.